Thank you very much, Chair, and really a great momentous day, I know, today as well, with the announcement as well for our Shannon Midlands Midwest University, and I'm absolutely delighted. I mean, it's a new university, of course, bringing Athlone and Limerick together, and it's going to really transform our region. And of course, what's going to be really important there is the opportunities that we will have to expand potentially campuses and hubs, you know, out into, say, the likes of Roscommon and East Galway and to other regional areas. And in that way, by making our towns and villages linked with universities, you know, we're driving excellence across the region and reflecting the communities that we come from. And I know, Dr. Ryan, we've spoken many times on this. So again, it is a really, really wonderful day. I suppose, you know, one of the questions I might have, I'll just go through a few of the questions here. Perhaps, Dr. Ryan, for you first, just as I've mentioned there, the importance of balanced representation. It's just there is challenges and opportunities in bringing such large institutes together now under technological universities. How important is it? You just mentioned there the numbers on the governing authorities. Just in this period of transition, I suppose I'm just curious if you wanted to expand on that. How key is that to the successful integration? And then, you know, what we have in front of us here today is the Higher Education Bill. I mean, it's there to reform a piece of legislation over 50 years old. And I mean, the focus on it is because we have such a high numbers of students. And isn't that brilliant? Probably the highest in Europe, if not worldwide, you know, going to third level. But then also it's the breadth of programmes that they're studying. And then it's also about how we're going to maintain excellence and then building strategies around that. And Dr. Miley, thank you very much for your presentation and for your submission and on behalf of the IUA. I suppose my question here for yourself is that, like, you know, performance frameworks. I mean, all of our universities are, you know very much about performance frameworks when it comes to QS World Rankings and ensuring that our universities are there in the top 1,000, top 500, top 250, top 100. I mean, that's how we're showing our excellence across the world. In your submission, you referenced, I know you just commented a little bit earlier there as well, just around research. And for me, coming from being a contract researcher in NUI Galway as well and understanding the concerns and needs there, I suppose my question here is, you've talked about how important is research and innovation and the investment in research and innovation as a driver, as you've mentioned, of economic growth. You know, how are we going to ensure that by funding research and innovation, we are going to drive and ensure that we maintain our position on those QS World Rankings? So I suppose it's, apologies, a bit of a broad question, but just if you could reiterate the importance that you mentioned previously. Just to welcome Councillor Mary Holt. Mary, we've been on Galway County Council together. It's wonderful to see you here today. And as a really great and strong representative. I suppose we know, as I spoke there about performance frameworks, we know very much about competency within our council as well, the importance of training and learning. I've seen it all through the council myself as a councillor in Galway County Council. I suppose, Mary, or Councillor Holt, what I might just say is that, you know, if there were gaps in university boards or technological university boards, I mean, how can councillors meet those gaps, competency-based gaps? How do you foresee that councillors could meet those gaps? And then just to thank, I think, apologies, Dr. or Professor Hergity, just on the inclusion there as well. Apologies, there's a few questions there if we have time. Thank you very much, Chair.
I'm happy to start off if that's agreeable, Chair. And thank you very much, Senator Dolan, for the questions and again for your constant support for the education agenda, which is very much appreciated. I'll just take two of them. One is, if you look back at the original Act, you'd almost fit that Act on one page. It's an indication of the scope and the importance of higher education now, that you know, the Act is the size that it is. And I fully agree with comments that were made by Deputy Conway Walsh earlier on. It's getting this right is the critical piece. On the question of the ownership and balanced representation, you talk about, for instance, the Technological University of the Shannon. If you look at the Connacht-Ulster Alliance and look at the scope, I mentioned in my previous, or in the statement at the start, the ownership, the local ownership of these institutions is going to be critical. So therefore, the balance here, and its balance has been mentioned a number of times, between trying to get very focused governing bodies, but also ones that people actually have a sense of ownership over, is going to be critical. And geography comes into that as well. And just, I did mention the practical difficulties that you have at governing body level of peopling committees. If you make it too narrow, you actually don't get to people, the many committees that people require to set up to make these effective organisations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ryan. And Dr. May, thank you very much for coming in.
Senator, I don't know if it's because I'm a fellow Rossi that you've elevated me to be doctor. It's certainly not a title I've earned.
I'm always mixing them up.
Thank you for your question. I think on the research piece, a couple of points. Our investment in research is way below what it needs to be, and this is directly linked to. I mean, we're a high skills economy. If you just look at what during COVID, our tax base has held up remarkably well, principally from the high skilled sector that are fostered by the higher education sector. I mean, the talent base and the innovation base for those. So I think it's a real case study of how valuable our sector is to the economic growth of the country. And if you look at countries like Denmark or Estonia or Finland, they're in most cases spending of the order of double what we are on research. And we heard, Chief Executive of American Chamber of Commerce at the weekend saying we need to double our investment. So, I would say don't listen to our voice, listen to the voices of industry, be it IBEC, American Chamber of Commerce, British Irish Chamber. They will all tell you this. And industry is also prepared to step up and spend there. I'd make one other point. We also need to look at how the research advisory piece to government is framed. And we have proposed in our submission, our detailed submission to you, that a research advisory council be set up. And I think that it is important that there is an independent advisory council to government. And when we say research, we don't just mean the science part of it. We mean the wider aspects of research, including all of the humanities and the creative industries as well, if you want to call them that. Thank you.
Thank you very much,
Okay.
Jim. I really appreciate that.